the first time I found out about this, it was when I was 23. I've always had irregular periods all my life, and back in the day when you're not trying for kids, it's a good thing because you have no cramps, you have no periods, nothing to deal with. After that, I did once ask my GP and I said like, is it a problem? But she was like, nah, it's fine. They always tell you that your period should be regular after at a certain point of time. But she said nothing wrong, and then I thought, okay, nothing wrong, until I went for a vaccination, and then they asked when your last period was, and I said 7 months ago. And then they were like, are you sure you're not pregnant? I was like, I'm 100% sure. So they offered to send me to the gynae through the polyclinic route, which was, then I said, okay, because it's subsidized and all that. And then that's when I found out I have polycystic ovaries, after they did ultrasounds and they checked and all that, yeah. So polycystic ovaries, typically what happens is that we don't actually regularly ovulate, and because we don't regularly ovulate, it doesn't trigger a period as well. So for me, at my worst, I was having maybe 1 period a year, sometimes 2. When it's a little bit better, without any, like if I don't do anything to it, then it comes once every 3 months. So after I got married, I still wasn't having my periods regularly. Unfortunately, I was very naive. I didn't know that, people always say I follow the app and then I track my periods and then they tell me when I ovulate. So I thought that worked for me too. And then I'm like, yeah, I ovulated because the app said so. Now it sounds very ridiculous to me, but back then it was like, I really believed it. After that, then I went to the gynae and then she said like, how you know ovulate? Then she asked me, I said by the app, and then she was like, no, doesn't mean that. Oh. And then when I started to do more research, because as time goes by, then you get more serious about this and you realize, oh, actually, I think I better read up about how to actually have a baby. For me, I didn't have to do IVF. Eventually, my children were natural. But I did. So I actually was started on a round of Clomid by my doctors to try and get me to ovulate. The first round, I think what I heard is they start from the lowest doses and then they slowly increase the dose. So I think the first dose didn't really work for me. My period came after 3 months again. I think I actually had to take some medicines to like trigger it to come. So then at that point of time, I said like, nah, I don't want to try any more Clomid. I think I want to try TCM. So I got my TCM contact from my friend who actually did the TCM. And I went there and so then they would give me the herbs to drink every day, and eventually after like few months actually, then my period started to regulate. Because I so naively wanted to have a natural pregnancy, that I actually didn't want to do a lot of tests that they asked for. I did the ultrasounds, we did the basic ones, but the doctors had asked us to do a HSG, and I said, oh, maybe next time. Because I think I naively felt that like I should be fine. Till it came to a point where my TCM lady had actually sorted me out for about a year, and then she said, actually the only thing that you haven't checked is your tubes. So I was like, okay, I think it's about time to go and try. And I did test my tubes, and I found out later on that both sides were blocked. And so then I was fortunate because from what the radiographer, I think, told me is that if your tubes are blocked at the distal area, it's very hard because very thin, they can't actually unblock it. Right? If it's at the proximal nearer the uterus, then they can actually try and unblock the tubes. So he said he managed to unblock both of them. So I was very fortunate.
I got married in December 2012. My husband was ready to have kids then. I wasn't. So we played and enjoyed ourselves for about 8 years. I think when I was 32 or 33, my husband basically said, I think we should start trying to have a child now because you're getting old. And I was also seeing a gynae then because for a couple of years my period didn't come. So I was seeing a gynae for checkups and also a follow checkup from a uterine polyp that I had previously. So my gynae then, who was very, very pro-family, he said, maybe you should give IUI a try since, you've been married for a few years, you're getting older and nothing has happened. So why don't you give IUI a try? So by the time we did IUI, I think we had been trying on and off for 2 years. At that time, we weren't doing ovulation tracking or anything like that. It was just trying to see what fits, whether it works. And then obviously it didn't. So when the gynae said, why don't you give IUI a try, my husband was like, okay, let's just do it. And then we did, I think, 3 rounds of IUI, and nothing happened. And we were about to do the 4th round of IUI, but my gynae was at a stage where he wasn't working all the time. So we didn't go there, and then I think this time it would have been 3.5 years since we actually started trying. My husband's like, why don't you just go and do IVF? You're getting old and we shouldn't waste any more time. And so we ended up at KKH, and that was when I was explained that actually fertility checks are necessary. It was never explained to me before, and I didn't know. I went straight to IUI. And it was there that I discovered that my fallopian tubes were blocked. And that was the reason why IUI never worked. After we did the checks, and we found out that my fallopian tubes were blocked, the doctor suggested doing it was just a laparoscopic procedure. So she gave me 2 options. She said, since your tubes are blocked and you are keen on going to do IVF, you can have the operation to remove the fluid from your tubes, or we can just skip the operation and go to IVF completely. But she advised at that time that if your tubes are blocked, the fluid that is in the tubes might flow back and might affect implantation if you do IVF. So she asked, do you want to do the surgery? And we said, okay, we'll just do the surgery then. So we did the surgery, and then in the course of the surgery, she found out that I had endometriosis as well. So I never had any signs of endometriosis. I think looking back, the only symptom was the longer periods. Yeah. So she cleared the endometriosis, and then she cleared my tubes, and then we proceeded to IVF. I was like, oh, okay. My husband was very angry though. He was like, how come, we never done these checks before? What is this? So obviously all the money previously spent had gone to waste, because there was no way that I was going to get pregnant naturally. Yeah.
Actually, my husband and I got married quite later on in life, in our late 30s, and we were trying naturally. Not for long, for about 5 or 6 months, before we thought, why don't we just get some tests done? There was nothing apparent, we didn't have any problems that we knew about, but we thought we'd get the test done and just check, make sure everything was okay. We weren't getting any younger, and we felt like we didn't want to waste any time. So we had just routine tests done, and it turned out that my husband has got low sperm count and quality. So they told him he had 1 million per sample, and average range is about 39 million. So we were quite far off. And it was at that point that the doctor said to us, your chances of conceiving naturally is pretty much 0. Like, your only hope of having a baby is to do IVF. And that was it. That was the start of our roller coaster journey.
We got married pretty late. I mean, I was 32, he was 30, so off the bat, we started trying pretty much immediately.
Don't waste time.
And after a year, we immediately went to get ourselves checked. Both of us went in and did the tests. Nothing was found, and they just said, keep trying. And then I got diagnosed with diabetes. So that's when the curveball came, because at that point of time, we were told by multiple hospitals that due to my diabetes, we could not do any form of ART. And we went to government hospitals, private hospitals, to get 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th opinions. And all the time it was, we actually had a doctor telling me, you should never get pregnant. she went for a school.
Yeah, she had a seminar that she attended, something to do with reproduction and how it is in Singapore now, and there were doctors on the panel. So what happened was
She asked questions.
she couldn't deal with the fact that every doctor we have gone to turned us down. So she actually asked that question in that whole seminar, and she posted that question, and all doctors answered it, and then still she couldn't deal with it. So when they had that breakout session and the tea session, she actually personally went up to each one of them and asked them, "Are you really sure it's possible?" And all three of them that she spoke to gave them their personal handphone numbers and said, "Get your cousin, call me."
So I just called the doctor and said, hey, we were introduced by this person, and we would love to come and see you. So he was like, okay, when are you free? So I was like, oh, I'm free for the next couple of days because I'm on leave. Before I could say anything else, he was like, yeah, sure, come down at 2 o'clock later. We went there and he actually just looked at my file and said, okay, we're going to do these tests and all that. But he looked at him and said, all I need you to do, your job is one job. Make her happy. And then he said, and I guarantee you will be pregnant. I broke down there because we had been to so many doctors, TCM, private, government. We had seen so many, and nobody even gave us hope or a chance. But this doctor guaranteed me on our first consult that I would get pregnant. He would make sure I get pregnant.
I think at that point in time, we always thought, okay, so I did conceive 2 kids naturally, and I'm very blessed for that. So then we always thought we wanted 3. So a year after having our second one, we thought, okay, let's just start trying, because, with age and everything. And we tried for about 2 years, and then nothing happened. So we went to see a gynae, not a fertility specialist, but a gynae, and they did some just basic tests, and they said, oh, it's definitely a husband issue, a sperm issue. So they gave him medication and said, just continue trying. So we tried for another 1.5 years, and we did conceive. But we had a miscarriage. Baby had no heartbeat at 13 weeks. So we lost the baby. And then it was a tough time, it was quite depressive in that sense. And then we continued trying. We thought, okay, let's not give up. Another 1.5 years went by, still nothing. So then we decided, okay, maybe it's time to go, do more checks and see what's going on. And then we did the checks and we found out, okay, your AMH, or my AMH, was very, very low. And they said probably you wouldn't be able to conceive naturally. So most people said, okay, time to give up, But me and my husband were so stubborn. We always said 3. So we said, no, let's see, maybe let's do an IUI and we'll conceive, We didn't do much research and we thought it was definitely going to succeed. So when we didn't succeed with the first IUI, we thought, okay, one more time. And we at that point in time, we always said no IVF. We wouldn't go so extreme. But then we did the IUI, the second one, and it didn't succeed either. And then I guess I was stubborn. So I said, let's do IVF. We will succeed like one time, let's just do it. And we did it, and we didn't succeed either. So, but I had some abnormal bleedings and this and that, and we tried to figure out what's going on. And it took another about 8 months before we found out that, because I had previous surgeries, it was because of that. I had scarring and everything. So we went to see a doctor, and the doctor said, actually it's kind of life-threatening, so you need a surgery. And it's lucky you found out in that sense. And he did say that it's lucky you actually, miscarried the child prior to this, because if not, both of you would have probably died, from it. So, okay, we went for the surgery, 13-hour surgery, and got it fixed, or got what could have been fixed. They also found severe endometriosis, adenomyosis when they were doing the surgery. And so they tried to clear whatever they could. And we waited 1.5 years for another IVF, another transfer, and it failed again. And then we were like, oh shit, what do we do? So we still had an embryo left, and we thought, okay, I was 40, it's been 7 years. let's just do one final transfer and that's it. And so we did that and we succeeded. So yeah, so that's our journey.